rock and roll in the first of a new series, Jukebox Heroes.
Well, I'm rocking and bopping and getting the breaks. Girls all said I had what it takes. When up steps a man with a big cigar, he says, "Come here, cat, I'm going to make you a star."
At the end of the 50s, Marty Wilde was the biggest rock and roll star in Britain. After 13 consecutive hit records and at the height of his career, another young singer would change his life forever.
It was just a disaster. And disaster followed disaster.
So if you wanna break my heart, that won't be so hard to do.
Today, Marty Wilde is still touring.
I still go on loving you. Each night I ask the stars up above, why must I be a teenager in love? Why must I be a teenager in love? One day I feel so happy, next day I feel so...
His rise to pop stardom and years at the top of the charts were followed by obscurity when the hits dried up. But Marty kept bouncing back for more, surprising his fans and making him the survivor of rock and roll.
Why must I be a teenager in love with a strong...
In 1939, Marty was born, playing Reginald Smith, son of a bus driver in Woolwich, South London.
He believed with all his might.
But this boy was always going to be special.
My grandmother was Irish, and she was a fortune teller. And she said before she died that I would travel the world and that I would be a singer.
I was born to rock and roll.
If I ever asked for any musical instrument, they were to get it no matter what.
That the music of my life will live forever.
Father was always singing, always harmonising in the house, and that's what really started me off. And we were very poor, and I asked him for a ukulele, which I'd seen in the pawn shop, and he said, "We can't, we can't get that for you, son. Can't afford it, because the strikes and everything that were going down." And but in the end, I got it,
In the early 50s, rationing was still in force. Times were hard. At school, our jukebox hero was already making a name for himself.
Breakfast at 9. You've just got time to put your face on.
There's always been a little bit of a rebellious streak in me. I used to get told off for cracking jokes, and generally being in a little bit of trouble. Yeah, I was prone to that. But no, I wasn't a bad boy.
Reg left school at 15, as soon as he could. Though he had low-paid jobs, there was always enough to buy the latest gramophone records. Skiffle was the latest craze.
I enjoyed Skiffle, it was great. Lonnie Donegan, was a big star then. My first really introduction to playing guitar as well came along sort of hand in hand. We were Reg Smith and, that's my real name, Reg Smith and the Hound Dogs. Because we were basically acoustic band, T-chest bass, that sort of thing.
The homemade sound of Skiffle, where washboards and tea-chest played a big part, gave every hard-up teenager a shot at the big time.
It did open the door to the teenagers. They realised they could play music, and from there on, with American influences coming in, it developed into rock and roll.
We went up to London, at Hammersmith Palais, and they had a big competition there. We went on and we went down really well. I think we came second. I think Chas McDevitt came first. But they had Freight Train. We had nothing. We just had a T-chest bass and a tall singer. I just had the feeling that something was going to happen.
After the war and everything, and after the ballads and Dickie Valentine and people like this, then all of a sudden there was rock and roll. It was the biggest thing to hit the country.
She got a whole man ahead. If she wasn't good looking, she'd be better off just go. Yeah.
Once I heard rock and roll, I'd moved on again. It was nearer to something that was more sensuous, more sexual, something I could identify with.
Well, it was back in '57, just a kid who sang and played guitar. And a famous impresario who needed a recording star.
Hello, Larry Parnes speaking.
Mr. Parnes, get me out of my suburban cage. He said, boy, I do much more than that. You'll be a teenage rage.
My mother said, been a man at the door to see you. He's left a contract and he wants to manage you.
Woolwich Road, look like he came from Tennessee.
What's his name? So she said Larry Parnes, and you know, my ears clicked immediately because this was Tommy Steele's manager. That was it. That was the beginning.
Well, I'm rocking and bopping and getting the breaks. Girls all said I had what it takes. When up steps a man with a big cigar, he says, "Come here, cat, I'm going to make you a star. Put you on bandstand by your Cadillac. Sign here, kid."
Do you rechristen all your boys? Oh, yes, I think this is terribly important. Otherwise, they would go on the stage with peculiar names that wouldn't be part of their makeup.
My professional name had gone from being Reginald Smith, which is my real name, to Reg Patterson.
You could never have a rock and roll singer by that name.
So he said, Marty or Reg? So he said, we'll flip a coin. So he flipped the coin, of course. He won, didn't he? So he said, right. He said, now for the surname.
Here was a big, tall lad of 6'4", who had to be kept friendly, yet he had to be kept wild. So hence Marty Wilde. Marty's very friendly, and Wilde shows that little wild trait in him, you see.
I said, what, Marty Wilde? He said, yeah. I said, oh, no. I said, he said, right. He said, you're a gambling man, are you? I said, yeah. He said, toss the coin. And I swear to this day that coin was two-headed. If I know Larry, it was two-headed, I'll tell you. He won.
Every little swallow, every chickadee, every little bird in the tall oak tree, the wise old owl and the big black crow, flap at the wings, sing and go, bird go, rockin' Robert, sweet.
He would always try to tell you what to wear to a certain extent.
I like to make suggestions, put it that way, but we don't argue on this.
And he got me at one time. He ordered this silk kind of suit, looked like a pair of bloody pajamas.
We always have mutual talks, and usually works out very well.
It was awful, and one of the early dates he got me on was the Elephant and Castle. Well, the Elephant and Castle boys, you know, were and still are tough boys, you know. How I ever got out there alive, I'll never know. I mean, I'm staggered they didn't storm the theatre and rip me to shreds, but I went out there in this silk thing and I thought, nah, this ain't gonna happen no more. That's the last time. And I said, sorry, Larry, from now on, I'm gonna wear what I want to wear.
There were other battles with his record company over what songs he should record and who with. His first record, Honeycomb, wasn't a hit, and Marty knew why.
They wouldn't let me use my band, and it was really frustrating because I thought my band were good enough to record. And some of the material, it wasn't me, you know.
The next single was also a flop, but Marty's live act was packing out the theatres and really getting him noticed. The country's only television rock and roll producer, Jack Good, had just moved to ITV and had a new show, the now legendary Oh Boy.
When I got the job doing 2 pilot shows for Oh Boy, I knew that they had to be headlined by Marty Wilde. He was the best rock and roll act I'd ever seen live. I just needed him on my shows.
The A-side of Marty's third single was more of the same, this time a country ditty called Her Hair Was Yellow. But it was the atmospheric B-side, Endless Sleep, that was to make Marty a star.
The night was black, rain falling down. Look for my baby, she's nowhere around.
We did these 2 shows, and I think I may have done Endless Sleep on both of them. Within a couple of weeks, it was in the charts. I mean, the reaction to these pilot shows of Oh Boy was phenomenal. Marty was absolutely on top.
I liked Endless Sleep. It still sounds okay now. It just had a kind of a bite, you know.
I ran in the water, hot for the feet. Every one break as I saw her there. But I reached for my darling, held her to me. I stole her from I see, and I seem to say, you took your baby from me away.